What's the difference between working for a multi-billion-dollar construction company and a small family business? Well, you may not know the difference because you've never experienced that, but there are pros and cons to both types of companies. My guest today is Joel Lipsky, and he has deep experience working for one of the largest contractors in the world, and he is the president of his own third-generation family construction company, Lipsky Construction. And in our discussion today, we talk about how he was brought up in the construction business, went off to college, got his own construction management degree, the wisdom of his dad in not bringing him immediately into the family business, the challenges of working in large organizations, the things that he learned in terms of processes and other approaches to managing safety and budget and schedule, how he burned out in one of those large organizations, went to Hawaii for a few years, and then came back into his family business. So it's a wide-ranging conversation that I think you'll find extremely interesting. And we end the conversation talking about his other business, which is virtual construction assistance, and how he has used virtual construction assistance in his own business. And as a result of that, has started his own company, helping other construction companies to delegate and outsource some of those tasks that consume overhead, but don't necessarily add a bunch of money to the bottom line. So enjoy my conversation here today with Joel. Feel free to share it with other people. And by the way, at the end, Joel shares some real insights into how to choose a business coach for your organization. And full disclosure, Joel and I are not working together. So you'll get a perspective from a construction company owner that is very vital in terms of choosing a business coach for your construction company. So stick around at the end for those insights. Thanks for listening today to Construction Genius. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Joel, welcome to Construction Genius.
Morning. How are you?
I'm doing really well. It's interesting. I was having a chat with one of my clients, I'd say about 6 or 8 months ago, and they're a family business and going through transitions from one generation to the next, lots of challenges associated with that. And I'm using that as kind of a setup. I'd like you to begin just by introducing yourself to our audience. Give us a little bit of background on you and your career and how you got into construction.
Sure. Thank you for having me on the show, first of all. My name is Joel Lipsky. I grew up in Long Island, New York, lived here all my life. I come from a family of contractors. My grandfather was a residential builder in Levittown. My father and my uncle developed it into a commercial construction company that services the Long Island area. Since then, me and my brother have taken over the business. I actually, before joining the family business, I went to college, received a construction management degree. I had the opportunity of working for a very large design build firm while I was down in Florida called the Haskell Group. Mm-hmm. So they are one of the industry leaders and pioneers of design build. And after I graduated with my construction management degree, I had the opportunity of going back to New York and working for Turner Constructor and the city. Mm-hmm. So that was a experience within itself. Turner kind of puts you through a meat grinder. There's a lot to learn, and they have a very large company and a lot of resources that they pull from. So there's a tremendous amount of learning during those 5 years.
Can I just take you back here a little bit, just real quick?
Sure.
So you're brought up in the business. In your mind as a young man, I'm thinking as you begin to think for yourself in your teen years, 16, 17, 18, did you always consider yourself as someone who's going to get into construction? Was it a challenge for you, a battle? How did you go through that process being someone who was brought up in the business?
I think it was more just the vision of my father had for us, is that there was always going to be a successor. My father was the oldest boy of his family, and he succeeded the company with my uncle. And me being the oldest son, I think there was a vision for me to succeed the company. And I just naturally gravitated to construction because I just happened to be pretty good at it. I was better at construction than arts and accounting in college. So it was kind of natural transition.
Were you okay with that? Your dad's vision, was that something you embraced? Was it something you struggled with? And the reason I'm asking you is because I know a lot of people who are listening they own their own companies and they're thinking about their kids getting involved. I'm just interested in that dynamic.
ebbs and flows. Different times of my lives had different visions for myself. I wouldn't trade where I am for anything today, and I'm very, very fortunate to be where I am. And I have a great business partner, my brother, that I work with. But I feel like at different times, at one point, I was in Hawaii working for the Department of Defense after Turner. And I was like, should I be a scuba instructor? Or because I was doing scuba every weekend, or do I go and make a career as something? And I remember specifically in Hawaii at the time, because we were taking out people from Oracle on these scuba trips and some really large California tech companies. And I was like, they all own houses and assets. And if I was going to be a scuba instructor, I would have a really cool job, but I would probably be renting for the rest of my life. So yeah, you kind of at some point need to determine like what is your career versus what your hobbies will be. So I was able to make that distinction, to still have my hobbies, but I have my career, and I'm very, very fortunate for that career.
Okay, so then having been brought up in a construction company, what advice, if any, and nothing really, if you can't really think of anything, it's fine, but what advice would you give to fathers in terms of how they mentor their sons or their daughters into the business?
Three big things come to my mind when you ask that question. Be open-minded and listen to what their vision is as much as what you want their vision to be. Be patient with them. And the third is to seek professional help or coaching in some degree, because it's a rocky road working in a family dynamic company. There's going to be times when it's very testy, and there's going to be other times where it's going to be a really amazing experience to work in a family company. So having a business coach or a mentor, like I know that's a service that you provide, for example, is I think a really key component in that process.
That's excellent. I appreciate that. So you go to college, you get your CM degree, and then I know Haskell's a relatively large regional builder, and Turner is obviously a behemoth. Give us a little bit of insight into what it's like working in corporate construction, so to speak, versus a family-run business.
Sure. Great question. When I went to Turner and Haskell, for that matter, it was very process driven, very procedure driven. They had checklists. And I know, for example, something I haven't seen ever prior to walking into Turner is that before they even pick up a bid, they have a go, no go, which I know is something that people like you preach to your clients, to evaluate the project prior to you committing your resources, which is a valuable commodity in our industry, before they do it. But Turner has it down so much to a science where every line item has points. And it would literally, if you worked with this client, might be +2 points versus -2 points. And so you fill all this out without any emotion, very factually, almost like an underwriter evaluating insurance. And they'll spit out, I think it was a green, yellow, or red summary. And red meant absolutely not. We're not going to do consequential damages and liquidated damages if we never work this guy. Green meant this is a really good opportunity for the Turner Corporation. And yellow meant you had to get an executive override from the project executive or someone higher up in Turner to turn that into an opportunity. So it was more like you had to sell it before you commit the resources. So something as simple as like this 2 or 3 page checklist on before they even commit their resources was something much different than how my father operated it. The comical thing about my father at the time, prior to me walking in, was you don't never say no. You bid on every opportunity. And I think that is from a generational business owner. I think that was just something that you just don't ever turn down work or an opportunity ever. And it could be something as small as a dormer extension or a window replacement to a full-blown house. You never turn that down. Where the bigger companies, I was seeing them turn down work. They don't do change orders unless it's an approved change order, for example. So there is a lot more process and a lot more procedures on a big company. And I tried to bring some of those practices and principles back to the smaller company when I transitioned into my family company.
So why didn't you start in the family business?
This is where I think I have to give a lot of credit to my father. He's extremely smart entrepreneur. He is the patriarch of the family in many ways. I think he was playing chess. I think he recognized that I would never get past what he has set up for himself and my uncle unless I was exposed to something much larger. And I brought that knowledge back. So I have to kind of credit my dad for almost saying, no, you're not going to work for me. You're going to pretty much turn me down when I wanted to go work for him, except in the summers, schlepping brick from job site. He kind of refused to take me on at first until I had some experience working for a much larger organization. So that I have to credit to my father for really envisioning that.
That's great. If you can think of two different categories here, what did you take from those corporate? You described one about the processes, which is tremendous. What did you take, but then what did you reject from the larger corporate entities that you're saying that's not a fit for the way that we do business?
Sure. So talked about some of the good things, processes, procedures, manuals. When I first got back to Lipsky Construction, I think my dad had 4 project managers, and all 4 project managers used a different subcontract. It was just like, let's just standardize this, guys, and let's have our attorney kind of review one subcontract, and let's all use the one subcontract that we agree to. So those are some of the positive things that I brought back. Some of the things I felt like were too big for a small organization like Lipsky Construction at the time was going too far into the weeds on the go, no go at the time. I also feel that some of their processes and procedures, if we had followed them to the degree that they followed them, it would take a lot more overhead for us to do those things. The companies like Haskell and Turner have just divisions for everything. They have a purchase. As soon as you win an award, it goes to purchasing. They buy it out. Then they hand it off to their execution project management team. Then they have a closeout team. They have divisions for everything, where at Lipsky, we have one project manager that when he gets the job, he runs it through closeout and tries to get, and then he starts estimating for his next job, because the estimators only do so much for 4 project managers, essentially.
So tell me about your own personal experience, because I see when you were working with Turner that you were a field superintendent.
Yes.
Now, was that an intentional decision on your part to be a super as opposed to a PE or a PM in Turner?
I believe that Turner has this really good understanding that you need field experience.
Yeah.
You could say that you understand it on paper. There's a difference between seeing ductwork on a drawing versus ductwork going up in the field, and how that clashes with your fire sprinklers and how that clashes with your low voltage electric wires, and what is a fire rated smoke damper in the field versus what it looks like on the drawing. So I think Turner has a really good policy of throwing everyone in the field at first, because they want you to understand. And actually, that's something during my recruiting that I do for my team. I'm really focused on how much time they spent in the field, just as much as how much time did they spend in the office as a project manager.
That's excellent. And as you were in the field, you had your CM degree and all that kind of stuff. When you were working with your dad through high school and stuff, did you get experience in the field at that point?
Yeah. So for me, like, I'm a very visual learner, which is why like a lot of subjects, like I talked about scuba diving. When I first went to college, I thought I was going to be a marine biologist. But then they start talking about the cells that make up phytoplankton that you cannot see.
Yeah.
I'm lost. And I was like, all right, this has got to be a hobby. I was like, where do you swim with the dolphins? Like, that's kind of what I want to do. But when you go to school for construction management and they're talking about CMU block and mortar, it's in my head, me picking up, I had huge forearms during those summers. I envision exactly what they're trying to explain in the textbook. I'm not a textbook learner. I'm a visual person. So when they talk about structural steel or mechanical or CMU block, I knew exactly what they were talking about during my college degree.
So what advice would you give to someone who's fresh out of college with a CM degree? They're joining maybe their first company. They've had a couple of internships. What advice would you give to a fresh graduate in terms of establishing their credibility in a company as quickly as possible? Definitely,
I would gravitate to the field and I would network as much as possible. Anything that you can join, any organization that you can join, regardless if it's like a quarterly happy hour of emerging construction professionals in the city. I know the AGC, Associate General Contractors in New York, has a construction leadership council. I would highly encourage those types of networking events as much as just getting yourself exposed to construction field. You're going to learn a lot just by doing those two things.
Excellent. So you worked with Turner for a few years, and then did I hear the word burnout? Is that what happened? How did you get to Hawaii?
So fortunately for me, I had a really good friend in my college years, Amos, who was pretty much a big brother to me, a very good mentor to me, who ended up working for Stryker Medical. And Stryker Medical is like the Turner of medical devices. So he was actually already out in Hawaii, and I went out there for his wedding, and beautiful wedding. But when I was working for Turner, the field is a grind. I was on the 446 train into Manhattan. I wasn't getting back till about 6, 7 o'clock at night. I was a nighttime superintendent. I was working probably close to 80 hours. This is when Bear Stearns went under and JP Morgan took over Bear Stearns, and we were renovating all the trading floors. And then I ended up doing cost. Cost in Turner was probably the biggest light bulb where I was like, this is how they run a business. So cost is, I was able to do risk assessment and value each project. I was reporting not only to the cost division leader, but also to the VP of New York, Charlie Murphy. And the only three things that Charlie asked for quarterly was, how's the safety? Are we on budget? Are we on schedule? Everything else was white noise for other people to delegate out and to deal with. And so I saw like what he was looking for. And I was like, okay, let's just pretend he's like the business owner of New York, which essentially that's what he was. So I got a really good understanding of like much higher up in the food chain in the organizational chart, what these people looked like. At the time when I was working in cost, I was sharing a cubicle. Like I didn't have my own cubicle. I shared a cubicle with another cost engineer. And my friend Amos called me up and he says, I have this really good opportunity for you in Hawaii. You could be a superintendent, project manager doing these operating room fit outs. I need an answer right now. Otherwise, I'm calling somebody else. Put me on the spot. So I looked up and I was like, okay, in 5 years, I can have my own cubicle. In 10 years, I can have an outer office. And in 25 years, maybe I get a corner office if they haven't axed me by then. So I pretty much, just to summarize and blitz through this, I was like, I'll see you in a week. And I literally walked in and I resigned and I picked up the job offer to go to Hawaii. And I spent a year in Hawaii doing operating room fit outs with my friend Amos.
Any regrets about that decision?
No, absolutely not.
Why not?
It was a time for me where I had a lot of burnout. I was kind of just not happy and just overall nasty. And I think that something that we've recognized, especially in New York, is that mental health in construction is completely overlooked. And one of the things that I try and preach to my employees is we have to maintain mental health at all times, regardless of that means you need a break. Or sometimes in the office, I'm just like, I don't know what's going on with you. And they'll tell me, I'm like, then go to Topgolf and take this person with you and just forget about this job for a bit, refocus, come back tomorrow, and let's charge through this problem together. I think that's something that a lot of the bigger companies do overlook is mental health.
Okay, so let's talk about that because that's interesting. How do you distinguish as a business owner, which you are, between folks who need a break like you just described and people who are just not willing to ball out and grind through the challenges that come up in construction?
That's just something that you're going to learn over time. There's a difference between someone that could just use a break versus someone that just is not capable of doing something.
Yeah.
My uncle actually has this phrase that I really like and I actually bring up in my interviews. I can teach you everything but motivation. If you don't have motivation and you're not bringing that to the table, that's going to be a problem for me. And probably within 30 or 60 days, I'm going to shake your hand and say, best of luck. It's not working out. But if you can bring that to my team and you can commit yourself and grind through this and enjoy the good moments and work through the bad times, then we can work very well together for a number of years.
Okay. So what would you say then? You gave one practical thing, that little break in terms of the mental health. What are some other things that business owners can do in construction to help their employees with their mental health?
Sure. Coffee. Taking them out for coffee. I try and just take one of my employees out every quarter. I try and do like quarterly coffees or lunches where I'm just like, hey, we're going to grab lunch. And what I've noticed is that when I do those things, they tell me things that they normally don't tell me. Maybe something personal in their life that's affecting them or something else. And then I can get ahead of that as opposed to reacting to something dramatic in their life and then affecting the project that they're on. And then I have to do something about it as a reaction. So I try and go around the office and now I got to grab John and take him out to lunch. And then maybe in like 2 weeks, I'll grab Adam and we'll just grab a coffee. And it's just 1 hour. It's like $50 that you can get ahead of these problems just by caring about the people that you work with. Whereas maybe the older generation is just like, nope, keep your problems to yourself and just work, work, work. I think I try, and my brother as well, we try and really care about the well-being, not only inside the office, but also outside the office.
Hey, this is Eric. Hope you're enjoying my conversation with Joel. I know I am. And this is the portion of the program where we stop and have a dynamic commercial. Yes, and we're not doing Manscaped. We're not doing gold. What else are we not doing? Whatever it is, we're doing something that can actually help your business right away. And that's my book, Construction Genius. Effective, hands-on, practical, simple, no BS leadership strategy, sales, and marketing advice for construction companies. You got to go out and get this book because it's totally awesome. It'll really help you to get clear insights in how to run a more effective construction business. And you and your leadership team will tremendously benefit from it. So scoot out to Amazon, spend $20 a copy, get yourself the book, and it will tremendously help your business. All right, back to my conversation with Joel. Where do you draw the line then? Because sometimes I can think like in my career, I remember this one time I was going through a really hard time in my career and my productivity dropped. I was working for someone else at the time. And that guy, he just put his arm around my shoulder and he supported me through it. And after a while, I came out of it. But how do you draw the line between someone who's going through, let's say, a moment in time or a season in their lives and someone who just doesn't have their act together in their personal life and it just always is affecting you in your business life?
I think it's just fortunately case by case where if you feel that this person is a valued, emerging, rising star in your organization and they've worked with you well and this is just a glimpse and you can get through it together, that's one thing. But normally, if someone is just not capable of doing something, maybe it's just teamwork. They're just not a team player, consistently shown that they don't get along with people. Like those are certain things that are going to come up. And when it's time to make hard decisions on letting people go, those are the people that are going to be let go, unfortunately, because you can't help those things. You can send them to all the training that you want. If they have this block that they can't get along with people and they're always right, that's a problem for any organization, regardless if it's construction or not.
Okay. So you're out in paradise, you're scuba diving, you're having a good time in Hawaii with your good friend. And then as we're talking to you now, you're back in New York. So what happened there, Joel?
So my father really needed me post Hurricane Sandy. Lipsky Construction picked up a lot of work doing storm recovery. Really gave us a high revenue source of income and a lot of work for a few years post the disaster. All of a sudden, he needed his team to grow. And so I came back. And I remember sitting on the beach, North Shore, Hawaii with a Corona. And I was like, this is the best, most relaxed my life is going to be. As soon as I go back, everything's going to change. I'm going to be put through the grinder again. But I think I was ready. I had caught up on my sleep over the years and during that past year and kind of gave my body a chance to kind of recover. And so I went back and really tried to put my best foot forward on helping my father and my brother and my uncle grow the business to where it is today. Walking in the door, and I actually challenged this to my own employees, like when I bring someone a new one, I was like, I want to know what you see that's not working out in my organization because you're a fresh set of eyes. That's almost like a project manager that goes visits the job site once a month. He's like, why is that piece of wood there with the nail in it? And the super's like, I pass by it 30 times a day and never even saw it. So they kind of get laser focused. So when I came back to Lipsky, I saw some things that were working out really well. Like my father was able to get a lot of government work, but I also saw a lot of things that were not working out well. And I tried my best attempts to help transition the corporation into more processes and procedures and tried to bring their overhead down because we were growing and our overhead was insane at the time.
Yeah. So how was that received by your family? Because, here you are at Turner, then you go to Hawaii and then you come back in and you're like, you've got ideas. How was that received?
So the older people didn't really wish to change. Surprise. They're kind of stuck in their ways. I remember this one project manager, he didn't understand Procore. He wanted to know where the cloud was. And I'm just like, this is not going to work. This is like trying to explain like how Bluetooth works. So slowly though, what started happening is that I was a project manager when I first came here. My job's way more organized. I was able to manage more projects than anyone else. And I remember at the time I had bought Procore because when I asked my father to buy it, he's like, I'm not paying that. I had bought it. And then he comes in, he goes, how are you able to manage all these jobs? And I was like, because I'm using Procore. And he's like, how do we get everyone else to do it? And I was like, well, you can reimburse me for the money I laid out on Procore. So he reimbursed me. And then he writes this email that everyone has to use Procore for any new project going forward. So something as simple as that, because he saw the benefit of using something, a standardized system and the policy. And as a business owner, if you're managing 4 project managers, you need some sort of consistency with like how you do your data filing and how you do your change orders. Like if everyone's doing different things, it's chaos for a big company or a small company. So I made a big attempt to standardize some of these procedures and practices.
I think that's interesting that you took the initiative just go out and get Procore for yourself. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you came back to the family business and just describe how that transition happened between you coming in as a project manager and now being the owner, the president of the company.
So fortunately for me, I have my brother, Alex, who's a great partner to work with. We were able to really get in sync, especially the last 18 months recently. We've really made a deep connection and we seem to be having a nice rhythm where we are solving problems together, which I think is a really big part of it. We're not butting heads. We're getting the coaching, like we're spending money on the coaching. We picked up traction. We have a BTO and we're really working through these together. I think that's a big part of it, as opposed to just one person just stuck with the big problems on how to figure it out. I like how there's teamwork and synergy between the two of us. Transitioning from my father and my uncle to me and my brother, I feel that my dad, and through my tenure at Turner and some of these other companies, I feel like I became a very skilled project manager. I think I'm pretty talented at that. As far as running a business, different story. It's like I'm starting over with my learning process. I could tell you exactly the means and methods on how to bring that brick wall up to cord shell and how to caulk the windows and everything. As far as running a business, I feel like the joke, and I'm kind of making a joke of this, is that my dad's like, okay, son, here are the keys to the car. It needs an oil change. Good luck. That was kind of like our transition into the corporation. And I'm oversimplifying. It was a little bit better than that, but we didn't really plan too much on how I was going to transition into that role. So it's been a challenge.
Yeah. So you're now in a place of ownership, leading a company with your brother. What are some of the biggest challenges that you've come across, and how did that lead to this whole project of yours, this other business of the virtual construction assistants?
Sure. So as a project manager, you see your project profitability, your project PL statements. The company PL and the overhead is like a myth, like this unicorn that you don't really get to see until you enter that role as a business owner. And then you're like, oh, shoot, this is crazy overhead that we're spending. So one of the big things that I saw was how much money our overhead was costing us. And I always think of myself as solutions-based, open-minded, very creative side to my brain on how can I fix this? There's got to be different ways to fix this. I guess we could get rid of Procore, but what's the ROI on that versus what we were doing? So something like Procore wasn't really negotiable. But what I did have an understanding of, and this is way before COVID, this is like 5 years ago, was I don't need certain people to be here in the office to do the jobs I'm asking them to do. For example, someone that analyzes and manages all my subcontractors' insurance certificates. As long as you know how to use Excel and you can read a PDF, you're qualified and you're organized, right? So in New York, for me to get someone that's an insurance manager just managing insurance certificates, you're talking like $75,000 a year, plus all the New York State overhead and paid family leave now and all this other stuff that New York kind of rams down your throat as an employer. Once I kind of realized that I don't need to have that person here sitting in this office to do that, which means I'm not looking in a 25-mile radius around my office, the pool of talent just kind of got much bigger. And then if you think like, well, do they even need to be in the United States at this point? And the answer is no, they really don't. They just need to be qualified for that position. You're talking about your talent pool is almost infinite. And what I was able to do was get my first virtual assistant in the Philippines to help me with managing insurance. And that was Liana. And Liana's been with me almost 5 years now. Same person. She's a consultant to us. She's a consultant. She has tasks. She has deadlines. And she's very responsive. And I think of her as a very valuable person, part of our organization. And as soon as I was like, wow, that worked. Click. What else can I do? And I know that you had recently on your podcast this estimator named Melvin. Melvin was talking about how he has this 80-20 rule where he has to quantify 80% of these widgets that only equate to 20% of the bid. And it's completely true. Like you have to go around and count light fixtures and fire sprinkler heads and quantify those. And you're paying the estimator. The estimator is worth like the highest, paying him $150. It's costing the company $200,000. And I walk down into my estimator. He has different highlighters. He's coloring in. I was like, what am I paying this person for? That's not a good use of his salary or his time or his resources. So I challenged him. I was like, listen, I'm going to get you an assistant that is more than capable of quantifying a lot of these things for you. I want you to focus your efforts on site logistics. I want you to do better buyouts. I want you to find out how are we going to get that edge over the competition that's beating this, while this guy, Melvin, is quantifying everything, our second virtual assistant behind the scenes. And then it started. Once I was like, two of them worked. I looked for any opportunity to take certain positions. And as those people left Lipsky and working for my father, I was like, I'm going fully remote with some of these positions.
How do you handle the immediate pushback you get from people is, well, if I can't see them, they're not working, or that's sort of the negative side. The positive side is how do we build company morale with one another as a result of being remote and all that kind of stuff? How do you handle that kind of thing?
Sure. That's kind of how Virtual Construction Assistants, which is a separate company that I own, kind of came into fruition. And basically, like, it worked so well for me. And when my drywall subcontractor that I really value I was like, why aren't you giving me bids? He's like, I'm overwhelmed. I can't get the bids out on time. I was like, why don't you try this idea? And it worked for him. And I started doing it for my other subcontractors that this business really took off. And I finally registered it with the state and all that stuff. Basically, you either had through really good business coaching, again, I've come to the conclusion that there's believers in this idea and then there's resistors of this idea. And you have this, unfortunately, it's primarily age where they're just not open-minded. If you're in your last 5 years and you're about to retire, you're not going to make a change or a cardinal change in your organization. You're going to just grind out that last 5 years, how you know it's worked, and then you're going to retire. I'm looking for I'm looking for the sons or the people that are entering organizations, decision makers that are looking to better change for the long term of their organization. So virtual construction assistants, we have over 50 clients. We're in 3 countries. We have over 100 virtual assistants working for us. Who they work for, those clients, are people anywhere from 25 to 45 that understand how to delegate at this point.
You're saying 25 to 45 in age?
In age, yeah, because over 45, unfortunately, they're not tech savvy and they're not open-minded to new ideas like this. Like going back to if I can't see it, it can't work.
Yeah.
That's again, I always say, you must not like Bluetooth because that's another one that you can't see, but it does work.
So let's say you have a client saying, Joel, I want you to find me a virtual assistant to do X. And you're like, dude, don't do that. Don't delegate that to a virtual assistant. That's something that you have to do in-house. What is that?
That's Melvin. That's your chief estimator. I do not recommend replacing your chief estimator in any capacity. I am not here to replace your project managers. I am here to support those people. The key people in your organization that are getting burnout, which is like what I went through, and working 68 hours a week and could delegate some of these mundane, repetitive tasks out to, those are the people I want to support.
See, that's really interesting there. So you can think through as an owner of your business, what's the highest and best use of my project manager's time, my estimator's time, even my project engineer's time? Take a look at that. And I think one of the pushbacks you get sometimes is like, well, dude, you've just got to pay your dues and do all that kind of stuff. And to me, it's like you're doing all that mundane task work. That's not really paying your dues. Maybe going out into the field and learning how to talk to a foreman and going through issues and getting yelled at once in a while and making mistakes in terms of things like the schedule or the budget or something like that. Those are things where you've got to pay your dues and learn. But this sort of these little tasks and stuff, that's not the place to pay your dues.
You just need to know how it works. How to put an RFI together for New York State is very cumbersome in paperwork, but you have to use their forms on their letterhead and you need the backup. If you know what it's supposed to look like, you can get that RFI out, that PCO out, so that you then can go in the field and actually see what's happening on the field so that maybe you can put a better payment requisition in, or you might be able to learn something that you would never, ever learn if you were never in the field, like how the fire sprinkler is going to hit the fire smoke damper and need better coordination drawings.
Yeah, that's interesting. So tell us how people can get in touch with you, Joel, and learn more about virtual construction assistants.
Sure. Our website is super easy. It's www.virtualconstructionassistance.com.
That's a good URL.
Yep. Bought the URL, and actually that was before I even opened up the company and backed into that.
There you go.
You can email me, joel@virtualconstructionassistance.com. And whatever needs that you feel that you guys can delegate out to others, that's just too expensive. Virtual construction assistants overseas are more than qualified and are much cheaper than someone here in the States.
Excellent. And do you provide your clients any kind of guarantee or how does that work? Like, they're testing you out.
Sure.
Tell me about that.
So there's 2 parts to our fee structure. We have our one-time fee for our recruiting efforts, and then we have a weekly rate. The average weekly rate is $400 for a full-time consultant that works for you. So a full-time estimating assistant, a full-time submittal manager, CAD drafter, $400 a week. So we are able to provide that one-time fee with a 30-day guarantee. So within 30 days, if you're just not happy, like this is not for me, I'll give you your one-time fee back. The weekly rates obviously go to the virtual assistant, so we cannot really give that back. But I have other people say, listen, this is a great idea. It's just the right seat, wrong person. Can you swap it out? I'll swap it out at no additional cost to that client. And then there's another statistic that I really enjoy is over 50% of our clients eventually call us back within the first 3 months asking for a second or third virtual assistant.
See, that's the interesting thing. Like, it's one of those things where I don't want to do it. I tried. Oh, wow. Why didn't I do this earlier?
Yep.
It's interesting. Excellent. Last question I have for you. Okay, so you work with your brother. What advice would you give to siblings working together to help them to navigate that sibling dynamic and really have a positive relationship with each other and a way of growing a positive business?
So it's difficult sometimes to separate your business partner from your brother.
Yep.
Just like it was difficult for me for many years to separate my father from my employer. Sometimes I'm like, I'm mad at my employer, but I love you as my father. So again, I cannot emphasize coaching and some sort of coaching that, especially like if there's no problems between the two of you, it's a great time to start that coaching because you have a level playing field. Don't start your therapy or your coaching when there's too many problems and you're beyond repair. Start at like a even access so that your business coach can see what it looks like before, and maybe he can help you through the problems, the good times and the bad times. But just that would be, again, like there was a tremendous ROI on how the synergy between me and my brother since we started coaching. And then also retreats. Go away and do big picture corporate retreats between the two of you guys, where your phone is off, your daily to-do list that you should be working on is on freeze, and you're thinking big picture traction type stuff.
Yeah, and you're referring Traction to the book Traction by that dude Wickham, I think, or something like that. Let me go back to the coaching. Just for the record, guys, I don't coach Joel, so this is not a self-serving question. Tell the audience, Joel, what should someone look for in a coach, and specifically someone in construction?
Yeah, you want to have someone that understands the industry that at the very least. You don't want to go into surgery with someone that is a dentist doing your shoulder flap. So you want to make sure that the coaches, usually you get it through a referral. You're not necessarily looking for this. It's usually a referral of someone through a networking event. And when you first meet any coach, it's a two-way interview. As much as they're interviewing you to see if you're a good fit for them, you should be interviewing them to see if they're a good fit for you. And also maybe just go over why you feel that you need coaching. Mm-hmm. Can this person help?
Excellent. And how often do you meet with your coach?
So when we first met, it was weekly.
Okay.
And we probably should have done higher than weekly. And because of good synergy and we're doing our homework and we're getting back, Alex and myself are at a bi-weekly with our coach right now.
That's great.
And I think that's a good pace for us.
That's excellent. Emphasis there. I just want to say this. If you're going to invest in coaching, and no good coach is cheap, you must commit to the process and commit to the homework, just like Joel said, because otherwise you won't get, it's not enough just to show up for the calls and chat a little bit. You must do what you say you're going to do if you're going to make progress.
Yeah. I also like how my coach, we did group and then individual.
Yes.
And then we kept coming back. I think that was
good.
really, really important because there's certain things that like you wish you could say, but you don't say because someone's in the room. And that coach will help bring those two things together in a positive way as opposed to a very negative way.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've done that and do that with my clients who are in partnerships. We do together and then separate. That's an excellent idea. Joel, I really appreciate you coming on. Last question real quick. So I'm out in New York. What's the one restaurant I should hit if I'm in the city?
Oh, man.
I know there's a lot. I know. I put you on the spot. Tell me the one restaurant to hit.
Go to Brookfield Properties. Check out the Bean and all they have to offer there. There's some really good places in Brookfield Properties right now. There's so many, like you're asking, in New York, you can get like the best mac and cheese at one place and the best slice of pizza somewhere else. So I love steakhouses. So any good steakhouses are good, like Morton's or with Chris, but there's also like some mom and pop ones that are really good as well.
Excellent.
Can't think of it off the top of my head.
Beautiful. No problem, Joel. Appreciate your time. Thanks for being generous with it. And I do wish you the best.
You as well. Thank you so much for having me.
Yep, my pleasure. Hey, this is Eric. Thanks again for listening to my interview with Joel. Make sure you check out his website, virtualconstructionassistance.com, and all the links are in the show notes. And before you bounce away, let me just give you a quick heads up in terms of a coach. One thing Joel said that I think is really important is that you should be getting a coach for your business before the fires start. And I know I am not a fit for everyone, and I am not cheap, but if you're looking for someone who has worked with construction companies for 2 decades and understands the nuances of running a business, and if you'd like an outside voice that can help you to get clarity on some of the big issues that you're facing and how you can overcome those issues, reach out to me and let's have a short discussion about if or how I can help you. Like I said, I'm not a fit for everyone. I'm not cheap, but with the right companies, with the right issues, I can be of tremendous benefit to you. So go out to constructiongenius.com/contact, put in your details there, and I will contact you within 24 hours to set up a short 10-minute conversation to talk about if or how I can help you. Thanks again for listening to Construction Genius today, and I do wish you all the best.